Um, so thank you so much for joining. This is the first of our quarterly WCS AI workshop series. Today, we're going to focus on what AI literacy looks like in practice and what are the tools that are available for everyday use and very common everyday use cases. So a little bit of context setting. The way we ran an AI, a very interactive, hands-on AI workshop in November of last year, and it was so positively received that we decided to turn it into a series. So this series, we have 4 different sessions that are designed to build on top of each other. AI literacy in practice, which is for this quarter. Then we'll have one that's focused on driving organizational impacts and outcomes. A third one that's focused on time constrained professionals and how do you balance the personal and professional, and how do you use AI to be able to reclaim time and focus. And then the last one is building on top of all of this and looking at more agentic based workflows and more complex use cases as well. And with that, I'd love to introduce our 2 facilitators who will be leading the sessions today. So I'll start with Brooke, who's going to be leading the first half of this, and we'll introduce Sajida at the end of Brooke's session. So Brooke is a digital marketing leader with 2 decades of experience driving growth for major B2B and B2C brands, with deep expertise across media engagement, SEO, now transitioning to AEO and GEO, content strategy, paid social, and e-commerce. Brooke is known for turning complex marketing challenges into measurable results. Her work spans everything from conversion funnel optimization to global campaign strategy, always focusing on innovation, integration, and impact. And I'm Sadhya Ravindran, a WCS board member and co-chair of the Career Development Committee. I'm also the founding head of go-to-market at Hammerhead AI. So for today's agenda, we're going to start with Brooke's session where she's going to focus on using or building a Claude skill for OKRs and task prioritization. So how do you ensure that you're working on the most critical things at any given point in time? And Sajida will cover the second half of the session where we're going to look at an end-to-end AI workflow for analysis and reporting. And then, of course, we'll have Q&A and then wrap up. And with that, Brooke, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to share a couple of slides first. Something that we like to do that helps the presentation is, I'm not sure if you all do this when you join these calls or not, but if anybody, I like to rank like the understanding of AI tools and where everyone feels like they're on their journey. So in the chat, if everybody can put a 1 through 5, 1 being like brand new to AI, just want to get into it, and 5 being like expert, Claude Code and Cursor and all the fun stuff building things. That will help me tailor the presentation a bit. Ooh, we got a 4.5, Renee. Nice. Okay, perfect. Good. I always still call myself like a 3 because everything's moving so fast. On one side of the spectrum, I've, worked with uh, fellow chiefs and Amanda to create, crazy, amazing things that we're gonna go to market with as a company. And then I also kind of, when you're teaching, you want to change the presentation a little bit so that it makes sense for everyone. And so what I am going to walk through is sort of the preliminary, Claude Code, create a project, create a skill, use the skill and make something basically out of nothing. And I have no coding background per se. And so normally I use quite a few other tools like Cursor, and I use my terminal primarily. But for this example, I'm just going to go straight to Claude Code. And I'm going to go, walking through those steps. So I will just share I'll share the slides, super quick because they're pretty straightforward. Give me just a moment. Okay. How's everyone seeing this here?
Yep, you can see it.
Perfect. And here we go. Okay. Thank you for having me, by the way. This is such an honor. And thank you for the amazing introduction. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we are going to build our own OKR tracker. So OKRs are essentially your company's goals, and you can be really, really specific about them, or you can be really general and loose about them. The best companies have pretty strict OKRs, and there's even a lot of, some math that goes into it so that they're on track for the year. You're also going to adjust your OKRs as you see performance. And so for this presentation, I'm going to talk through quarterly OKRs. And you'll see when I talk to Claude that Claude is really going to be doing the hard work and asking me the questions. So I don't even have to be, a professional business strategist or a CFO to do this. But it will help me stay organized. And when I forget something in the future, I can just ask Claude to pull this skill up because we're going to be creating a skill, and that skill becomes, permanent, something that Claude is going to chat through and reach out back into at all times. So some of the problems with OKRs, again, like we talked about, they start vague. Um, Tracking gets abandoned. So I've worked for massive agencies that do this on a monthly basis, and they have rolling forecasts, and they go through all the different ways to do it. And it does get piled up with a spreadsheet. There's tons of people, too many hands in the pot. Formulas get broken, things like that. And nowadays, we don't need all of those analysts and all the people that are going to be working through it because we're basically building with this Claude skill your own kind of OKR assistant. And what I love about this, I hope after this training, everyone takes the OKRs and realizes now you can build other business management skills on top of the OKRs. And so all of a sudden you've got, your analyst, you've got your CFO, you've got your CTO, and you can start building out all of the functions of your business. And that's what I have done. So I have um, a marketing agency, and there's so many things that I used to spend time on being, a sole proprietor owner, just doing everything myself. And so now it's tons of things are automated, and it's just life is so easy. So I feel like the people who get ahead of this and start actually leveraging Claude Code for these types of skills are going to be able to take that extra time and go for a walk, because you're not buried. Okay, so a skill is essentially just a markdown file. I don't recommend, I'm going to give you this Claude skill markdown file for you to use on your own, but I do not recommend that you get Claude skill markdown files off of the internet, especially if you don't know and you have a coding background how to read the markdown file. There can be some funky stuff in those. I was wanting to grab one off the internet the other day. I was like, fully automate my entire marketing stack. I was like, yeah, let me see what this is. And then I'm hesitant to add that into the mix because now your Claude has access to your desktop, your terminal, your passwords, all of those things if you're using it to full capacity. So be a little bit weary of that. I did not add any funky stuff into this OKR tracker. Of course I didn't, but okay, so building the skills, this is the same way you would do it in the real world. You would think about what is my objective? You want it to be qualitative. You want it to be time bound as a SMART goal. It always starts with a verb. It's something we can achieve in 1 quarter, and then we want to be able to look back quarter over quarter to see how we're doing. Don't make your OKRs like incredibly complex unless you have multiple lines of business. You just want 3 to 5 objectives, and then you basically have to give it a target, and you want to make sure that it's set up properly. The scoring and the guardrails are important, and this is what's in the markdown file because you don't really want to go on any type of tangents, and you really want this file to be really, really well structured because you don't want to think about it. You want Claude to think for you in this case. So building the skill itself, there's 3 different modes. There's your writing this skill mode. So you can talk to Claude Chat and Claude Cowork or even Claude Code and say, help me write my Q2 OKRs. And the way that we interact with Claude, I'm not going to do a ton of it on this call because we don't have as much time, but you really want Claude to continue to interview you. So if it doesn't already have a markdown file of your entire company and everything that is known to man, and you're just starting out, you want to ask it to ask you questions. I even have it interview me, and I turned that into a Claude skill like Brooke's interview. So now it knows me personally, but you want to do the same thing with your company. When you're starting this out, though, you don't have to have a markdown file like I'm going to share with you. You can actually ask Claude to make the markdown file for you and give it all of these things. Today, we're going to start with the markdown file. And then the score mode is important. Like I said, there's a little bit of math here. So we want to tell Claude that, hey, we're going to do a quarterly check-in, and here's our score 0.0 to 1.0 with the rationale, and then summarize the wins, misses, and carry forward items. And then the adjust mode. So once we have OKRs in business, life changes. We buy a business, sell a business. We might lose employees, gain employees. We might get clients, lose clients. You have to go through adjust mode. So now you're taking that same Claude skill and you're saying, okay, we already did our check-in, our scoring, and now we need to change. And now I want you to review, what has changed and why. And then it'll prompt questions. You tell it, ask me questions, and then I'll continue answering. So this is the complete Claude skill file. Again, I am not a coder. This was built by Claude itself, and it looks scary if you haven't gotten into the terminal side of things yet. This is, markdown language, but you can see things in there like I just talked about. You can see the objectives, you can see the results, what I'm asking, my guardrails, all of those things I've already set up in there. And it's also a file, not so you can copy this and put it in Claude, or you can upload the file into Claude. So I'm going to walk through doing both here. But so let me just jump over to live demo, and then I'm also going to check the chat for anything new that's come in.
Yeah, nothing on the chat yet, Brooke. We can continue.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So, I mean, I'm talking about it like it's so simple, right? But even 3 months ago, this just wasn't that simple. So I am going to use my Claude demo account. Like I said, I'm doing things in different places and a lot of fun items that I can't share my screen about. So I have this demo account here. Okay. So everybody is comfortable, familiar, and has Claude app on their desktop. I'm not going to, this is a great for another day, demo the Claude extension for Chrome is my absolute favorite. The problem with that is that the conversations kind of disappear. So if you create some fancy workflow, it's like, oh, now it's gone. You go back to it and it's not there anymore. You have to kind of recreate. So I try to do as much as I can here in the actual Claude web app. I also know that you can have continuous conversations from the app into your desktop now, which is great for notes and things like that. So what we're going to do is we are going to hop over to Claude Code, and you can start out by, I'm trying to get rid of this. You can start out by just telling it like I'm going to ask you to create a Claude skill, and I have the markdown file. And then I'm going to just give it a little purpose. So we are going to use it to create quarterly OKRs. And then I'm just going to grab it. And there's my skill. So it hasn't created a project yet. You don't have to create a project on your desktop or wherever and then tell it to go find the project. So all of this is going to be all encompassing. It's going to create the project. It's going to leave the OKR skill in the project. And the reason why we have this little OKR tracker Claude skill.md is because in the future, when we want to reference it, we're going to use slash and then Claude skill OKR tracker.md. Whatever the file name is becomes your command in the future. So I'm going to just hit send, allow, and it's going to ask me questions, which is great and easy. And we can adjust, and it already has all of the scoring and everything. So we may want to, I mean, you can use your own skill. Okay, so here is our command now while it's thinking. Oh, and I'm going to allow for the session. So sometimes you need to give it extra permissions. There's a lot of settings you can set up out of the gates, and usually Claude will walk you through all those settings, but you can give it full access to everything you need to. I have noticed that there's some platforms that actually restrict Anthropic um, reach. So in meta ads, you can't use Claude Code to code anything unless you have developer keys. Okay, so it built the skill for me, and now it's asking me questions. So it's saying, what kind of context, what role will you play? I'm a manager, I'm a lead. So it knows so much, right? It already knows. People have already used this. It's already based in its own knowledge base. I'm going to say, where should I create it? Save to files. So if you want to just chat, you can still just do chat like that. And then I am going to say framework agnostic for now because, there's all different types of methods. It understood a couple of different OKR tracking methods. So if you know those methods and you want to go through it, then you can go through it. Great. I've read your markdown file. So it actually put it into the project Sarah Job Hunt, which is like a fake project. And so I'm going to tell it to create a new project and put it into the new project. But sometimes it takes a minute. While it's thinking, does anyone want to ask the questions coming through the chat?
Yeah, so Brooke, I'm asking everyone to post their questions online, and then that
Oh,
way we can just collect the ones and ask you the questions. So basically, one general question around desktop versus web version and the value of Claude Max or Claude Pro. Like, do you need to go for the maximum to be able to get value out of it, or what are you seeing on your side based on your usage?
I use Max for myself because I need to be building things and I use like massive amounts of credits. Um, I would say that you don't have to use Max Plan. I use actually a cursor, which I don't know if you can see my screen. No, I'm probably not sharing cursor, but in Cursor, the good thing about it is that it can pull from ChatGPT, Claude, all these different places. And so what you can do is it automatically uses all your tokens and then goes to the next one. So you could get by with not paying the max plan for any of these and just let Cursor pull from all of them. But I think if you're first starting out, go ahead and you don't have to do the max plan. But when you get further into it and it's starting to like do all of your daily things that you need it to do, then I just have the max plan.
Okay.
I just signed up for the max plan right away because I was like, okay, it's gonna change my life. I already knew that.
Got it. And then the other question was around the concept of creating a markdown file and using it for Claude. Is there equivalent of this in other types of tools? Or for
No.
example, no, there isn't.
No. So Claude, I think that is what Claude is, why Claude is special. It has the chat, the co-work, and the code. So Claude co-work is just as it sounds, like it's your personal assistant, it's your intern, it's your marketing director. It's literally everyone in your company that you want it to be. And when I use Claude Cowork, I am usually surfing the internet for things, and they work very well together. I very rarely use chat because I pretty much chat with Cowork and code. But on the go, if I still want to ask advice, like, hey, my son had a bloody nose this morning, like, tell me what to do, I'll still use I still use ChatGPT as well, but it's not as advanced with the MCP servers and things like that that are coming out for Claude.
Got it.
So sorry, I just have to chime in. Uh, just a slight expansion there. So Markdown is available across all AI tools.
Oh, there you go.
And it's not and it's just so happens that Claude and Anthropic happen to be very advanced.
Mm.
I know there are some questions here where I think the audience is asking whether they need to learn and how can they create a Markdown file. So I won't be showing that in my demo, but I use Claude Code all day and I do not create Markdown files. I ask Cowork to create a Markdown file. So if any of you are feeling apprehensive that you have to now learn how to create a Markdown file from scratch, you can if you want to, but you totally can use the Cowork feature to create it for you. You can just give it English language instructions and say, create this Markdown for me. And then I take it and paste it into Claude Code and say, use this Markdown and code for me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when I first started, I said, today I'm going to use a markdown file that's already created, but you can just tell Claude what you want. I mean, that's the best part I think about Claude is talking to chat or cowork specifically and saying, here's what I'm trying to achieve. I've given it the wildest, wackiest problems and it's come up with automations and things that I can build. And then you go and build it, but you're not building it, Claude Code's building it. So, and you're inputting and you're doing, and you get a lot better at it over time.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's going to ask us, I know I'm running up on time here, but it's going to just ask us a few other things. Here's what I built. You guys can read the screen. And now it's saying, write my OKRs or score my OKRs and so forth. So now it has the file and you can refer to it anytime you want to. So I'm going to ask it to write my OKRs. I keep saying OQRs, like QBRs. And now it's gonna, it's like, I'm not giving it any information on purpose, by the way. Like my prompting is usually a lot better than this, but I'm just showing you all how it will respond if you don't give it all the information. It's gonna ask clarifying questions because it doesn't know much about my business, right?
Yeah.
So here's clarifying questions. Um, it did already ask me my role, but I'm gonna give it to it again. Yes, let's plan for next quarter. And so you can go through here, but you can also type something else if you want to, right? Like my priorities and challenges are going to be marketing focused, but let's do just looking at which one would be good here. We're going to do strategy. I have 1 more minute till I have to drop. It feels like not completed here, but essentially it's going to write the OKRs. And then again, you give it adjust mode. If you want to adjust them, you're going to give it your scoring modes and it will walk you right on through everything that you want. See what is important to you in 90 days. So what I would do if I was going to make this productive for myself, because this for me is taking too long, in my opinion, I'm going to feed it my data. Like I'm going to say, here's all my data from last quarter, or here's my data from the last 2 years for every single category. Here's everything that you need. And then it's going to do all of the thinking and not have to ask me all of these questions. It can infer from the data what's going on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brooke. I think one question that came up is just the creation of a markdown file. So I think we can follow up on that specific question with some tutorials around that. But this is incredibly helpful. And thank you so much. And now we will switch to Sajida's session.
Thank you so much.
All right. So Sajida Kalyadan is my colleague as well from my organization, is a product and technology leader with 20 years of experience spanning engineering, product, and domains like e-commerce, B2B SaaS, and crypto at Atlassian and Coinbase. A Terra.do fellow, she's now leading product at Hammerhead AI, where she uses AI tools to shape products and prototype solutions. And I've seen some of this at work, so it's pretty awesome. Sajida often writes about AI and leadership, enjoys coaching PMs, hiking SF trails, and chasing XP on Duolingo. So tell us about that, Sajida.
Thank you, Sadia. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here and happy to share what I've learned so far. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to share my screen. What you see my desktop? Okay, hold on. Something weird going on here. All right. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So as Sadia gave the introduction, I'll just quickly talk about I spent a lot of time in non-clean tech and other domains, and over the last year and a half or so, made this intentional decision. So spent some time in Terra. I wouldn't say it helped me land the job, but it helped me analyze the space and make an intentional decision about where I would like to go next. So happy to answer questions on that if you have any going forward. All right, so the problem statement. So in my years of experience, as much as we've had new technology come in, one challenge that I've seen consistently is that a lot of us in tech spend an inordinate amount of time trying to get data and insights from different sources because this data lives in multiple spreadsheets, emails, and then when we get it, the data has to be cleaned. So often our headspace goes in, trying to organize and clean up the data, leaving us very little time to actually derive the insights. And of course, once we do that work, we often have to translate that to show it into a deck that articulates our analysis in a way that can influence conversations. So today we are going to see all of this live, and we'll take a real life example. So I'm a sustainability manager in New England manufacturer that has about 6 facilities. And I open my inbox, I get this email from the VP of operations. I'm sure many of you might have experienced something like this, and that would have led to a lot of scrambling to get the information. So here the request is get a facility by facility cost comparison by the end of the week. And this data might be living somewhere. I've also been told to look at the EIA's industrial rates by state. So in order to do that, let's see where I can find the data. Just for the purposes of simplicity, I have if you look here, I have some, sorry, I'm getting a call of all at this time. Okay, so do you see my screen here? You're able to see the EIA industrial rates, the confidential Excel?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to quickly go to my screen here, and these are the files that have already been opened. Now, this file, I downloaded it from the internet, from the EIA, and it has the industrial rates of all these states. I could have, using Claude Cowork, actually gotten this data from the internet without doing this myself. And I think Brooke touched on that, where if you use Claude extensions, it can actually not just go to a website and do a search, it can click around things and really be really powerful, including opening your emails and deriving content. Now, there are obviously some security and implications to all that. So we'll talk about that later. For the purposes of this demo, I just got the rates, and you can see the industrial rates over here. The next one is internal confidential data. So quick show of hands, how many of you have probably had restrictions on whether or not you can, upload data to your chatbots on online browser tools? Sorry, I can't see everyone in the screen right now, but any restrictions that people have encountered, feel free to, yeah, I can see some show of hands there. So that is the difference. I think, there were some questions about why Claude on desktop is more powerful. The reason it's more powerful is if you download the paid version, the Pro or the Max, you get access to Claude Cowork, which is this, you see my screen here. You should be able to see the Cowork tab. And I'm not able to see people's reactions, but if you're not able to see it, let me know.
We can
So
see it.
yeah. So Cowork shows up only on those paid plans. But if you download the free plan for Claude and download the desktop on your MacBook, you would not see the Cowork option. So Uh, the the beauty of this is that you can now manipulate files in your computer. You do not have to expose it to the browser and the cloud and it being stored elsewhere. You can manipulate files, but that also means Claude can delete and edit files within that directory. So I would say that anybody who's starting off on this, create folders where you're okay with your data to be deleted. You're experimenting with it. So over here, I've linked it to the same folder that had the EIA files in it. And it also has the confidential data of my company. And that is this data here. I just want you to just familiarize yourself with this one. These are the 6 facilities. This is the monthly electricity consumption in kilowatt hours. And here are the 6 or 5 facilities. One of them, it's closed. So clearly there's some messy data here. At the facility level, you can see that the state, the acronym is either the long form or it's the short form. So again, this is really real life data. We have messy data. We have the square footage of the factories. And we also, again, have this note that information that it has been closed. So what I'm going to do now is, given that email that I got from my VP of operations, I have this, sorry, this me. Okay. I'm just going to ask it to create the cost comparison for those facilities. It already has access, but I'm just going to be super clear and you can experiment and see. Usually it's pretty clear. Now, I could also tell it to create a PowerPoint right after this, but we'll just stage that. Let's just see how this goes. So I'm going to click on Let's Go. And as you can see, Claude Cowork is now working. So going back to why is this more powerful than the desktop version? It's now looking at the files in my folder that I just showed you. It's doing the analysis and everything is staying within my company's computer. It's not going out to the internet. And as some of you might have heard about agentic AI, in this case, Claude will spin up its own sub-agents. You don't have to worry about it. It's doing its work. It's pulling up its own skills that it was built with. You do not have to tell it how to read an Excel file. And it's going through this set of instructions. Now, if you see here, it has a Claude Markdown file. I did not need to create that, right? So pretty much if you do not feel comfortable creating your own Markdown files, you could just come to Cowork and ask it to do some work, take that and code it. In today's example, I'm not doing any coding. I'm only asking it to create these Excel spreadsheets, generating the insights that I'm looking for right now. Any questions at this point while we're waiting for this? This usually should not take more than a couple of minutes. But again, one call out here is Claude Cowork is in preview mode. It's not like expanded launch to everything. So they're still ironing out bugs, etc. Any questions so far? I saw one. Okay, nothing else yet. Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out to you while we're waiting for this is I ultimately want to use these insights, and then I want to transfer it to a PowerPoint presentation. How many of you have spent late nights or weekends trying to think about a presentation outline and trying to put together the flow of data? See a show of hands, yes. And that's kind of what I love about this product, right? We have immense understanding of our businesses, but sometimes the work that goes into like massaging the data and then like trying to think about it, like this is a tool and it's an assistant. It can even help you come up with an outline, but then you can expend your brain power in really figuring out how to take a somewhat good presentation and make it great, right? That's really the power of this tool. So let's go back and see. This still seems to be running. I'm going to give it another, and if this is too long, then I'm just going to switch to what it actually showed me. It was experiencing some slowness yesterday. So let's just switch gears and I'll show you what it had created for me in another demo yesterday. So I'm going to show you these backup files. So I have these two files over here. I'm going to open these up really quickly.
Sajida, while you're doing that, one question that came through is there versioning in all of your tasks so that if you're rewriting over your document and when you request changes and you're like, oops, that's not what I want to go back to the original version?
That's a good question. Yeah, so the way I would answer that is, let me go back to Claude here. So versioning is something that is inherently manageable more easily if you were coding along with, software tools that allow you to maintain versions for code. If you wanted to do this at your file level, I think you can totally request Claude Cowork to say, every time you do a task, create a backup of the slide or create a backup of that. And instead of doing it here for every new chat, in Cowork, you have a settings page and you can set up some instructions there. So what that means is those instructions will apply to every chat in the UI. Whereas when here I'm clicking a new task and I'm giving it instructions, those apply only within the context of this chat. So it's a great question. And if that's something that you want to streamline at your end, you can have that as a global instruction to Claude to do that anytime it's working here. All right, so let's just see. Oh, okay, see here, I was a little too impatient. It did create these files. There is a comparison file here in a folder. But again, for the purposes of time, I'll just show you what I already have. Like it's already telling me, hey, I have done this, I have the monthly consumption, and I have the spreadsheet, the insights are in there. This also shared the insights and some demand. I did not ask it about summer demand, but it did that. So what I'll also do is, while I'll ask it to create the presentation, we'll take a look at what it did for the spreadsheet.
I think you addressed this partially already, Sajida,
Yeah.
but the sort of follow up to that is, when is it beneficial to set instructions at project versus chat?
Yeah. I think if the instruction is contextual for the task that you're working on, then you only need to give it here. For example, right now I'm asking it to come up with an outline given this particular task. But if my job pretty much every day is, I am going to constantly be creating Excel spreadsheets and there's a certain format for it that is expected, I would put that in the global skill. So it's interesting, like I asked a question and it's actually trying to make sure that, is it to drive a decision? Based on that, it's going to have a different way of coming up with a slide, which is pretty cool. I want it to be no more than 5 to 7 slides. Now, this is so cool that it actually detected that I had a branded template in the folder. I did not say I had it. So let me talk to you about that first. We'll come back to the spreadsheet. This is a folder. This is a branded template for my company, Northeast Precision Metalworks, that was in that particular folder that Claude had access to. And this is something, again, that you and I have probably experienced. Our companies have certain formats. We want our slides to fit into that. We have all this great information, and now we are trying to massage these files to come up with the right format. And what Claude did very beautifully here was it detected that I have it. It can create its own default presentation, but I'm saying, no, go ahead and um, create it. So I'm just going to say, yeah, do all of the above. So now it's coming up with the slideshow. Of course, actually, it's not doing the slideshow, sorry. It's asking me, or it's telling me, here is the outline. And so this is where it's really a great smart assistant. It's telling me, here's what I think the flow is. Now I could say, I don't agree with you, change this, change that. I'm not going to do that for the purposes of time. I'm just going to say build it. Okay. So I sort of jumped to creating the slideshow, even though we have not looked at the data. Let's look at the data that it came up with. So here is the file that Claude created all by itself. And this is what you cannot easily do on a browser, sharing company confidential data. The EIA data is not confidential. This is just as is. Now, what it did for facility consumption is that it cleaned up the states. You can see that it has taken the cleaned up version of the states. It's aggregated the consumption for the entire year. And here it was able to multiply the right EIA rate, look up for the right state, and give me a piece of information regarding the square footage. Now, the next two tabs are the analysis that I did not tell it much more than cost comparison, right? So it did some rate sensitivity analysis. You can see it has done it at minus 10% and plus 10% for each of these facilities. And the insights are really here, right? It's showing that, well, Rhode Island had the highest industrial rate. And as a result, this particular facility in Rhode Island has the highest cost factor to it. Now, again, this may not be that perfect because as you saw, my instructions were kind of vague, which were deliberate. I did not add a lot more clarity to it, so I could easily go back and have it update this information. And if we go back to, all right, so it's building out the slideshow right now. I'm happy to take more questions, or I'm happy to dive into showing you what the deck looked like. Any questions so far?
So Sajida, in the file that you're just showing on the tab, there is this one value that looks like an outlier, right? Like on that
Yeah.
row 6.
Yes.
So some of this is, okay, you have a great assistant that
Yes.
does the analysis for you, spits data out, and then you're using your own judgment to be like, this looks right, this looks wrong.
Yes.
So that type of iterative process.
Yes, important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's a great call out, Sadia. So for example, here it said largest consumer. And so largest consumer, it assumes, and it's showing just the dollar amount that was consumed. Whereas here, these are rates. So it's kind of confusing to look at it, and we are changing the metric or the unit metric of each field. Ideally, in an Excel spreadsheet, every item should be the same
Unit.
format or the same metric.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of very rough right now. The other thing I did want to mention, I'm just losing my chain of thought, is every time you interact with it, it's very interesting. Sometimes if you say, hey, do a full in-depth detailed analysis, it would probably show me more than 2 tabs. Again, for the interest of time, I did not do it, but anything that you can guide it where you're using your internal knowledge, all the creativity and all the enormous intercompany knowledge that you have, when you translate that with a assistant like this, your productivity is obviously going to shoot up. So let's see.
The other thing that I remember you pointed out when we ran through this in prep is it actually identified that shutdown facility and removed it, right?
Yes, it had. Yes, good point. Yeah, it had done that. It had ignored that. And I also want to quickly, do want to talk about security while we are bringing up while the PowerPoint is coming up. So this is an important thing to keep in mind, right? The fact that you're able to create files directly in your local directory. If you are not careful, you might give it access to some folders that can't be retrieved or something can go wrong. So you have to make sure that it aligns with your company's corporate policy. And I mentioned in the chat, for those of you who do not have MacBooks or your companies are, Windows shop, the great thing is that Microsoft has recognized its Copilot feature can become more powerful if it's combined with Claude Cowork. So they have made an announcement that they will be launching Microsoft Copilot Cowork across the board. I think they're coming out in beta in May of this year, but I would expect that would be launched across the board. And that is obviously going to be very, very powerful because so many companies are powered by Windows. And then on the personal security stuff. Now, one thing that I know personally, many of my friends, including a startup founder, he has given Claude access to his browsers, right? So if you come here in your settings, okay, looks like the full, yeah, it's created, but I'll come back to that. But you can come here to settings, and there is an option for Claude to work with the browser. That is turned on by default. But there is an extension that literally allows Claude to click around, go to my email, see something in it. It can, if you give it your access to your passwords, it can go to your, your travel website and book a ticket for you if you give it your guidance. So that's where it's very powerful. But some of these sites are not secure. They might inject, rogue code that if it comes into your laptop, Claude might end up, doing something malicious. So I haven't installed that. I haven't played around with it yet, but I know many people are experimenting with that. All right. So we have a slideshow here. Let's quickly look at what it has done. Um, and this is where we'll go back to Claude Code, demo Claude. And now you see this was created at 10:15 a.m. So this happened right while we were talking. And we're going to look at this presentation now, what it has created as a starting point. So it's amazing. It's picked the template. It has put the headers, the titles, the formatting usually is always pretty good. Sometimes it's not. So here is the overview page. It's sharing the 3 key metrics that it believes are important. And again, we could have told it what we wanted to show up here. Some information about the EIA rates being extremely, variable across all these states. Annual cost per facility. Now we could have said create a table, right? It sort of took its own call on what to do. Cost efficiency and seasonality. And it even it had asked me, do you want recommendations? And here you can see the formatting is a little bit off, right? There's also next steps, etc. And again, you have a great starting point now to take it and go forward. So I'll pause here and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sajida. I think just this was a great sort of overview of going from the data to the analysis and then the reporting side of things. And you're a product owner, like many people on this call as well. And if you think about these types of workflows, and how do you look at it from an end-to-end perspective, but still find those guardrails, right?
Yeah.
Because that's another really key metric. And I think a lot of female professionals tend to be more on that risk-averse side of the spectrum. So can you walk us through your own journey of how you've opted into these tools and the productivity that it unlocks for you? And
Yeah.
what has your own internal process of finding those guardrails been?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I think I might break it into 2 parts. One is just the intimidation of a new tool, especially one that's changing so fast, right? And there is sometimes the fear of being left behind itself that paralyzes us. And so my analogy to this is way back in the day when I was trying to do math, and I was a very good student, but the math was getting more and more complex. I was just staring at the sheet of paper, and my teacher was like, "Hey, if you don't start," and I was so afraid that I'm going to make a mistake. And so I think the permission that we give ourselves, hey, I'm going to take baby steps, and it's not going to be great, but every baby step you take, you're just going to be better than that previous version that you left behind, right? And that's not to say you're competing against someone, you're probably just competing to be a better version of you. So for me, the journey started with I was a former developer years ago and haven't done development for a long time. So I went down the path of taking a very basic AI course on Coursera, and then I played around with some other things. But after that, it was just more following 1 or 2 people that I knew are relatively ahead of this and saying, I'm going to take 1 or 2 things and play with that. So I would say that with even with co-work, or now let's shift to security. If um, if it's a new tool, and if you, I mean, we're all business professionals when we're, today we use our browsers and we go to different sites. I think we know enough to know that, hey, let's not download something, from a site that we are not comfortable with. And so I think as long as you're doing these experiments on a folder that you create with data that you are familiar with, with every step you take, you're just sort of boosting your own confidence. So I would be the first to say that what I showed you is a tip of the iceberg of what people are doing with the tool. But I also know that for my current reference, uh, this is good enough. If not good enough, it's actually giving me the lot of productivity that I need to think about other hard problems. Um, and the other thing I would say is one of the reasons the Anthropic team released Cowork is they realized that their legal teams, their finance teams, all started using Claude Code to automate their tasks. And by releasing this feature, they're trying to evangelize that all of us could build what we want to build. And I think that's really powerful. So if you want to take a personal laptop or an old laptop, or do some experiments, I would highly encourage it. And as Brooke mentioned, right, the more we do this, we would just feel more comfortable with some of this technology.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to the audience if you could, like, just because we have 9 more minutes and
I
whoever
finished
wants to
fast.
ask can jump in. So if there are any questions, and the one thing I will say is that for us, it's been a bit of an art and a science to figure out what is the right time frame for these sessions. Last year when we ran it, I think we ran it for an hour and a half, and then there was some feedback that, hey, that might be too long from a time commitment perspective. Now we've shortened it to 1 hour, and I think I'm going to get some feedback that it might be too short.
Sure.
So we're still trying to find that balance. So one thing I will say, please do give us feedback. We have 3 more of these workshops. So the more we hear from you, the more we can design it to tailor your needs. And second, there are a couple of follow-ups here that were being requested. One is just a little bit more of a tutorial and guideline around building a markdown file, which we will follow up with. And then there was a second comment that came through that asked about a whole talk on security. So in the sessions that we've designed so far, we're addressing security the way Sajida did, but not an explicit conversation on security just yet. But we will certainly consider that and whether it makes sense to have a specific discussion on that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, those are very valid questions. I would say again that for security, I mean, I'm sure most of you are working within corporate environments. And so you cannot willy-nilly download something and use it. And so in that sense, Claude Cowork may be something that you can't use yet. But if Microsoft is going down that path, you can use it. Um, and on Markdown files, again, as I think I'd mentioned, like you're absolutely people who want to learn can learn. Otherwise, I could go to Claude and say, create a Markdown file. I want to do ABC right now. I've also used it to sometimes do designs. So for example, while there are all these image generators, instead of buying 6 products, you could experiment with Claude Cowork and say, I want you to create a design with this and see if it works for your needs, especially for slideshows and presentations. So you're not spending all that energy trying to look for that. Those are some of the additional things that I do in addition to coding as well.
All right. Any questions for Sajida, folks? You can either ask it out loud, or if you want to type it up, I can ask on your behalf. But we're all friends here, so. All right. So what I'll do is let me just bring back the full AI workshop session just to show you what's coming up, right? So you have an idea of where we're going with these various topics. As someone commented on the chat, I mean, it's such a broad area that we could go very deep on one specific thing versus not. So our next session is going to be AI for impact. So this is where we have our facilitators talking about driving specific organizational impacts in the sustainability and clean tech context, right? So very relevant to your day to day. So not just thinking about it from a personal use perspective, but more broadly at the org level, how you're able to drive impacts using these tools. The third one, which is AI for time constrained professionals, this is a very where the personal and professional tends to blend. We're all extremely time constrained, and so how do we use AI to be able to unlock time and focus? And then the last one, of course, moving more towards fluency. So it's going to be more complex use cases, more complex workflows that we walk through. I also want to thank our volunteers for today. So both Sajida and Brooke, they took time out of their day to sort of walk through this with us. But we also had our event volunteers who were working in the background. So Darvish, who was collecting all the questions and to make sure that we could be able to fit it, we were able to fit it within this time. And then Julia, who was helping in the background in terms of figuring out how do we bring all this content together. And then we also have our event organizers and social media people who actually promote this so that you find out about it. And with that, let me just stop share here and look at.
There's a last question.
There's actually a question here. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it's a great question. I think Claude has done an amazing job of becoming the tool for enterprise users. The Claude Code, even the desktop version, but in the last 7 months, the Claude Code version that developers are using, it's just become extremely powerful. So for enterprises, absolutely, Claude is had a lot of headspace. And then Microsoft, of course, is partnering and trying to get some of that juice into the Windows ecosystem. So if you have the flexibility to use Claude on Mac, then that's probably a really good option. But you shouldn't be left behind if you're on the Windows world.
All right. Any other final thoughts, folks? Otherwise, we can end 3 minutes early. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.